Hey everybody, my name is Jim Farmer. I'm the festival director of Out on Film. This is our first hybrid festival. We have some films in cinema. We also have some films virtual this year. We have a lot of great programming for you. I'm very, very excited about tonight's Q&A. The film Greenhouse is one of the films we're showing this year. I'm going to read a brief synopsis of the film, and then we're going to talk to the writer and the director, Thomas Wilson-White. The Greenhouse. Grieving the death of her mother, Lillian, Beth wakes one night to find a portal to the past in the forest surrounding her family home. Swept away by visions of her idyllic upbringing with her three siblings and two loving moms, Beth becomes mesmerized by the past, unable to see the dangers that lie ahead. Please welcome the director and the writer of this great film, Thomas Wilson-White.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for bringing this film to our attention, and thanks for joining us. I really looking forward to talking to you. So, I mean, I have to ask you, this is a film that we liked a lot. I mean, it's very ambitious. How did this come up?
Well, I mean, it's very autobiographical, other than, I guess, the portal to the past.
Okay.
I was raised in a regional town in Australia with my two mums, and I guess for me, I'd spent my whole life not really seeing a family unit that looked like mine on screen. And it really is something that I'm very passionate about, which is kind of diversifying family in my work. But one of my mums had also been diagnosed with cancer in 2015, 2016. So I was also, I guess as I was about 25 at the time, and I just felt us kind of cross this threshold where when we were no longer going to be able to be how we were, which was quite unaware and naive. And I think, when those huge life events happen, you really do finally get perspective for how easy you had it. So I was thinking about my first feature, and I really wanted to do something quite ambitious and personal. And I just found myself yearning for that time and thinking about the past and really kind of stuck in this feeling of melancholy that everything was going to change, which it did. So that was what was on my heart. I really wanted to write a film about, the past and kind of people who, I don't know, just the dangers of it, and how we can get stuck in it quite literally.
This film, is a beautiful character drama. It's character driven. It's also got time travel. There's a lot going on here. Tonally, how did you work to really sort of keep this together and balanced?
In all honesty, the edit, we were in post-production for a significant amount of time, I think, because the film has these sorts of concurrent strands happening, and tonally it shifts. I really wanted the film to feel immersive emotionally, and kind of that, once you go into the greenhouse with Beth, you do enter a world where time is a little bit, the past, present kind of all coexist, and nothing really, you lose your sense of time. But to do that, I think it really was about taking the audience with Beth emotionally and having it be really clear the sorts of her emotional journey through the film is kind of your anchor. So it was a puzzle. I think it was a really big puzzle that we had all of this brilliant material, all these amazing performances, and we just had to go, all right, how do we construct this film?
Sure.
So I think, they often say that the script is the first draft, the shoot is the second, and the edit is the third draft. And I really felt that in the edit suite for the film, for sure.
This is a two-part question. Can you describe the relationship that Beth has with Lillian, and then describe the relationship that Beth has with the rest of her family?
Yeah, I mean, she has a really unique connection with her mother. And I think, I wanted to build a character who she just needs to see her again. And that really is really representative for me of grief. It is, if I could have 1 minute 5 minutes, like just one thing, what with that person, with my mum, you know, for some reason, that's just something I really craved after she'd passed. And I think I had the exact same relationship with my mum who passed as Beth does with Lily, and it was very special. She was my champion, she was my best friend, and we had a really strong connection. So I think in the film, you meet this person where there is just a piece of her missing, and she spends the whole film trying to find her and trying to speak to her and interact with her. And for that to work as well, I really wanted to create contrast with how she interacts with her siblings, who are kind of boisterous and living their lives and out in the world and have processed their grief maybe in a more healthy way. You know, I think, you know, grief can really hold you back as well. And there comes a point in everyone's journey with their grief where they need to face forward and acknowledge, you know, that they themselves have to keep living. And that's a really hard bridge to cross when you're grieving, I think. So they're kind of miles ahead of Beth in a way. And that was a real joy to write, because I also think that you can't just be in a film with Beth being really sad all the time. Like, it's really nice to have the, you know, the supporting characters be sources of comedy and you know, that sibling dynamic and all of that. It was a real joy to work with the cast as well on those scenes. Yeah.
There are a number of LGBTQ characters in this film.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, my family's gayer than the family in this film, but it just felt unrealistic. I have 4 queer siblings, including myself. And when I was writing the film, a mentor sort of said to me, "No one's going to believe this. You can't write a film with just a queer family." Which I kind of kicking myself about. Like, part of me's like, I mean, that mentor was clearly straight. I was like, I shouldn't have listened. But it's really important to me that that the reality of my life is shown, because there's real complexity. My siblings identify in different ways to me. Our journeys were not A, B, C, D just because we had queer mothers. You know, I was actually terrified of coming out because I kind of felt it would confirm to the broader community that lesbians raise queer children, and that felt like this self-fulfilling prophecy I didn't want to complete, which is stupid now when I think back on it, but at the time it was really high stakes. Yeah, so and I just think, like, we're so often given one character in a film or TV project, you know, and I was like, what happens if I have the majority of the characters in my film are queer, and what happens if the story is not even about that for them? Hopefully that's a way to actually normalize it for the sort of heteronormative audience as well. Mm.
Okay. Symbolically, what do you think that, what would you say that the greenhouse represents?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it has always been the past, and it is a space of, you know, it's kind of this living ecosystem, and if you aren't careful, you don't even realize that it's slowly encroaching on you, and trapping you. A lot of people have projected their own sort of feelings into the space, which is amazing. You know, like, I think having made the film in isolation, like, once it starts being put in front of audiences and you start getting that feedback, it's so amazing. So I often don't try and be too prescriptive, but for me, it's 100% the past, and it's I guess for me, it's my comment to the audience of saying, you know, as idyllic as it looks, you can't live there, you can't change it, you can't interact with it, you really need to move on. But, you know, we're obviously humans, and we don't play by the rules, I guess.
Thomas, how hard was this film to get financed and made?
Excruciatingly hard, Jim. You know, we made it outside of the system in Australia because we kind of knew we wouldn't get the traditional funding and support because it was queer and because it was sort of magic realist and kind of a bizarre sort of concept to pitch, particularly in its formative stages. So I went away to my hometown with a group of amazing professionals who I'd worked with before and said, let's make this movie. And, my home people from my hometown who I grew up with, who knew my family, supported us and fed us and put us up in houses. And we really did have to go outside of the system to get it made. And that continued up until a certain point this year, where suddenly the country I live in and the supporting funding bodies turned around and went, all right, we accept you, but it was 5 years of doing it without them. And I don't hold any frustration about that. I think I'm acutely aware of why that was. But if anything, I would hope that I can be I don't know, a herald of change or something in Australia and help other people maybe do it not so tough when they're making queer work here. Because we definitely are a couple of years behind you guys when it comes to queer stuff here.
Okay.
Mm.
Can you this is a pretty kick-ass ensemble. Can you talk about the cast? And they really work together like clockwork. I mean, they just are very believable. Can you talk about getting the right mix?
They're amazing. I love them. Look, we three of the siblings actually have known each other for a while, and they went through drama school together, which was kind of an invaluable resource for me to have had them know each other as friends. But before we went to location, we rehearsed pretty extensively for about a week or two. I think about 2 weeks. We did a lot of movement work and improvisation, and sort of worked with a movement instructor who taught us and helped us kind of get very comfortable with each other physically, and just kind of break down some barriers in terms of for me with my siblings, we've seen each other in a complete worst places in our lives, and we've done horrible things to each other, and then we've done beautiful things for each other. And so it was really for me about how quickly can I get a group of people to sort of relate to each other that way. So the rehearsals were really vital and fun and emotional, and I think by the end of it we'd really all kind of exposed ourselves somewhat to each other in a healthy, normal way. And I think that really shows. From the second we were on set, they were just kind of my family. I was just kind of looking at a group of siblings who had grown up together, and it was a real joy. There's so much stuff we had to get out, cut out of the film. I wish there was a sort of director's cut, because there was some really brilliant stuff we had to pull out. But their dynamic was kind of intoxicating and wonderful.
Was this film impacted by COVID? Did you film it before, or when did you film it?
Yeah, we filmed it before, but the post-production was impacted by COVID. So last year, in I think about February last year, we got the green light that we were going to go right to the end of post and finish the film by July. COVID hit in March. We were in lockdown for most of the post-production. So I was sitting on my computer doing ADR with the actors and visual effects and sound and music all over Zoom, and wrapped post on the film still in lockdown. So it was really bizarre. I think I don't know. I think we've all had a lot of perspective in this time and realize there are things that you don't need to fly around the country to do. You can just sit in your bedroom. But on the other hand, I'm excited about the next one, where I do get to go and work, I don't know, physically with the people that I'm working with. I've never met the sound designer of the film. The composer was in another city. I had an actor in Hong Kong doing ADR. It was really bizarre. But it really did go to show that we, when we put our heads together, you can kind of solve any problem. And we were all, safe and healthy, which I guess was the priority.
Knock on wood. Knock on wood. So you mentioned a little bit earlier that you thought that Australia was a little bit behind the US in terms of queer representation and queer filmmakers. How would you describe, Australia as a producer of queer films? I mean, because this film is obviously very strong. I remember last year, Ellie and Abby was a big hit. I mean, there are some really great, queer Australian films right now. Can you sort of talk about the industry and the queer filmmakers who are in Australia?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really exciting time because Ellie and Abby was made by a friend of mine, Monica Zanetti. She's
Okay,
amazing.
great.
There's some brilliant queer writer directors emerging in this country, and I think because the tone is changing and there really is a push for inclusivity and sort of intersectional sort of people behind and in front of the camera. We're in a really watershed moment, it feels, and I've been really lucky to kind of break into the industry using this film and kind of have found a place writing and working as a queer practitioner. It's kind of a career I would never have thought I could have had, to be honest. Growing up, going through film school, there was kind of like this repeated mantra that like only one person is going to make it, and it's going to be that guy over there who is obsessed with Tarantino. And that wasn't me. And I was going, oh, well, maybe I'll just give it a shot. But it really has been amazing what's kind of been going on. So I don't know. I think Australia is catching up. I think the problem is that there isn't enough people in the funding bodies and who are actually the gatekeepers who are, LGBT or really truly understand the experience and the differences that we have experienced. So you can see a kind of specific experience being kind of funneled into the stories that are being told. And I think what we're now trying to do is find a way to really blow that out of the water and expand and diversify the experiences and the stories that we get to see on screen. So it's not just the one thing that we've kind of had before. But I feel immensely positive about the future. And we'll just see. Check back in 20 years, I might be completely jaded and depressed. I won't be, I'm kidding.
How important is it for you as a out man to have such rich, fully dimensioned queer representation in your work?
Oh, yeah, the most important thing. I think, there was a time in my career before when I was younger, where I was just by default making work about straight people, and I made one film with a queer protagonist, and I was in school still. It was a student film, and it just like smashed at festivals, and I didn't learn anything from that. I was like, oh, that's weird, and then I went back to making straight work. And then one day, about 6 or 7 years ago, I just kind of went, look, if I'm not gonna be honest, and I'm not gonna write and put up work that represents who I am and the community I live in, what am I doing this for? Because it's so hard and so competitive, and really, I need to make a mark. Like, as a person, I need to know that I tried and that I put out work that I believe in. So I kind of just came out again in this weird way and went, I'm a queer filmmaker now, and that's all I'll do. Which was weird. I had a lot of people say, are you sure you want to box yourself in like that? And these are people who kind of thought queer cinema was one thing. And I just had to say, look, I'm just going to prove you all wrong and show you that it is a lot more than what you think it is. And there's a lot of potential there. And so for me, representation and visibility is the most important thing, because think about you or I and how we would have benefited from seeing more diverse storytelling growing up. Like I need there to be a gay superhero in a Marvel movie. Like I need there to be, a sitcom about being queer. Like I need that variety so that we can, I understand where we came from and why, and I have the utmost respect for the filmmakers who created new queer cinema. But I also go, we need to not be shackled to it, and we need to be able to, really push forward and diversify. I think that's kind of the goal.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So what is next for the film, and what is next for you?
Cool. So the film is about to land in Europe. That's getting announced soon. So we're going to do festivals through Europe, into Asia, South America, which is awesome. So it's still doing its festival run. It's going to land on streamers soon in Australia. It's been released in England on streamers, so it's
Nice.
kind of done its run in England, which is beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I think the perfect story would be that it ends up on a big streamer and anyone can watch it whenever they want, and I can move on because I've been working on it for 7 years almost. Um, and for me, I'm writing TV in Australia, which is really amazing, and I'm about to start writing my next film because I feel I just woke up one day recently and went, okay, I'm ready to go again, and that's kind of the goal. But definitely kind of breaking away from Australia as well, and making more work overseas would be the goal. So yeah, I'm feeling really blessed and really happy, and the journey's been amazing.
Well, congratulations, very well deserved. The film is The Greenhouse. The director and writer is Thomas Wilson White. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and thanks for
Thank
making
you.
the film part of our programming this year. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you